Many people think that vibes and chemistry are the same thing. They're very much not. The vibe sets the tone while chemistry sets the pace. Hey there. Ho there. Hello there. Divinest rising, grandest rising, blessed be to the day, may be everything that you require to create everything that you desire. I got a question last night, and it was somebody that just got a whiff of the podcast. First time listening to the podcast, and they got the link from the podcast because they listened to the lecture last Friday, and then they saw my Instagram, they saw my Facebook, they did some research. And then the main thing that he asked me was, how can you maintain so many different aspects and not do you get overwhelmed? And I was honest, I was like, at first, yes, I was overwhelmed like a motherfucker. Like, my mindset was trying to fit the title of what I was trying to put myself into. So I was trying to be the podcaster. I was trying to be the lecturer, the speaker. I was trying to be the clothing designer. I was trying to be the healer. I was trying to be the reader. I was trying to be all of these titles. And it was a moment of time for reflection for me to say, whoa, I just stepped out of an identity. I just stepped out of a lot of identities based on the avoidance identity, the acceptance identity, the neglect identity, and everything that built these identities. I just stepped out of that vibration, of that frequency. And then it made me really think that the thing that I got to maintain with myself, the thing that we got to learn to maintain is, you are a brand. You are a corporation. You're a corporation. You're a brand. You're a platform. That is your base. That's what you are. You are a number. You can fight it all day, because I know people be like, they treat us like numbers and they treat us like 3/5 of a human being. Yes, you are 3/5 of a human being. When I accepted that I was 3/5 of a human being, I was able to dissect what that 3/5 was. The 3/5 of the human being that I was the identity that I was trying to maintain. I'll say that one more time. The 3/5 of the human being that I was trying to maintain was the identity that I was trying to tap into. I was trying to maintain. It was the identity I was trying to maintain. A lot of times we don't realize that automatically you're already a brand. You're already a platform. You're already a company. You're already a corporation. That LLC mentality, the ownership mentality, is how you dictate and move in your company. When I started thinking this way, when I really started thinking that I am a brand, I am a company, before I even started, I had that mentality. The way that I was representing myself and the things that I allowed to represent me changed. This is a part of that healing process. The way that I allowed things to represent me, and I allowed representation of me, of the entity that is the God Alchemist, that is Papa Lucy. Way before I was even Papa Lucy, before I accepted this title, everything changed. The way that I directed my flow, because it's all based in ownership, is accountability and responsibility. Becoming aware of my own actions in the dynamic of my power. The changing of that space of me being simply trying to fit the identity or the title. Simply saying that try to fit the title. Once I change that mindset, that's when I was able to understand how I'm able to maintain so many things in my space. How I'm able to maintain how I move in the space, my energy level, how I feed. Everything that I do is based in the representation of making myself the best version of me. It's not based on being the best man. It's not based on being the best boyfriend, husband, father, uncle, son, brother, employee, boss. All of those, none of that shit matters. None of that matters. Because once I learned the aspects of tapping into myself, all of those things came naturally in the divine masculine aspect. I couldn't be these things or understand these aspects until I tapped into that. Of course, when I talked about those avoidance issues, the neglect issues, the serial avoidance, the serial neglect, the serial abandonment issues, these thoughts of that nature, and I couldn't tap into those because I gave myself other titles. And a lot of times I talked about this in this podcast. I talked about this in this week's podcast. We talked about the vibe and the chemical romance. The chemical romance, the romance being that composition of that chemical vibe. This week we got into improper balance or imbalanced behavior, because I had to learn for myself that a lot of the behaviors that I was maintaining, my reactions, the way I was reacting to things, the way that I was speaking on things, the way that I was so vocal trying to be real, it was all coming from a space of being accepted, because I always thought somebody was trying to say something about me. Every 15 minutes I wanted to say that I was real. Here or there, yeah, I just stole the Joe Budden line from the only song that mattered. But I was always in that space. That's an improper behavior to your healing. If you always feel that you have to react, these are just some things that you're going to get off your chest. If you always feel that you're always in a state of reaction, it's time to reflect in that space of why that behavior became so acceptable. And then you're going to understand that a lot of the spaces, because we built that we were on that vibration based on traumas, and we came into that space, we laid ourselves dormant with certain aspects of ourselves. How many times have you put yourself into a space to where you allow certain parts of you to become dormant in order for you to exist in that space? How many times have you, knowing that you know the answer, knowing that you know exactly what you need to be doing, but you put it down to the wayside? You didn't say it out loud. Nobody asked me, so I'm not going to say anything. But then this is how this works when you put things in dormancy. When you're not saying what you need to say, when you're not speaking from your heart, when you're not coming from the heart of your true self and understanding the balances of your heart, it's going to come from your head. I remember a lot of times in my life being stuck in reaction. I was stuck in my own head. A lot of the times when I was making my moves, I was stuck in my own head. I was stuck agreeing to them old arguments I talked about yesterday. Creating these anchors in my space so I can keep reacting based on that behavior. That leads to the parasitic function. So we have imbalanced behavior. You have premature growth. That means you're going into spaces with a preset narrative inside of your mind. And now you're like, if it don't work this way, then I know it ain't going to work this way. I always have something to go back to react to. And then it set my mind up in my thought process. I was like, if I'm not doing it now, this is something I had to be honest with myself with. If I'm not doing it now, I'm not going to do it then. That how and why thought process shattered my ego in multiple places. There's no such thing, and that's the key. There's no such thing as mistakes and bad choices. There's no such things as mistakes or bad choices. The mistakes are things that you made based on the amount of information that you had and you were willing to apply. that led to the choice. Your mistakes, what we call mistakes, I told you, you got to be gentle with yourself. The mistakes that you think that you made, the choices that you thought that you made that were not savory, they were not coming from if you had the information that you have now, you still make the same choice. You still make the same mistake because you needed that aspect in order for you to learn from it. Be gentle with yourself. A lot of times we put ourselves into that improper balance mindset because we still stuck in that old narrative that we keep playing in our head. That one time in 96, that one time in 03, that one time in 08, that one day at band camp and all of this. And we keep that mindset going. And then we keep ourselves in a state of reaction to find things around us to make us keep moving in that same process. Avoiding our own shadow, avoiding that dark space. But I'm gonna give you a key. Every entertainer is your shadow. When you're looking at the entertainers, they're your shadow. Everything outside of you is an aspect of your shadow being shown to you based on what you've accepted based on reaction. So they'll make it okay to you. They'll seem okay. But in the reality, they're getting paid for owning. They're getting paid as their corporation puts them out there, or they incorporate themselves. They made it a business. They made your trauma a business. They made your shadows, your avoidance. They made all of that. They made that a business. You're the only one not benefiting from it. Because the only way for you, you're the only one not accepting that you benefited from it. I've talked about this before. The first step to you becoming, the first step to you going into your healing process is acknowledging that you benefited from said events in your life. The reason why you benefited from said events in your life is because you wouldn't be where you at right now if you didn't. You would not be where you are at right now if you did not benefit from those traumas. You would not be where you're at right now if you did not benefit from them bad choices, those mistakes. You would not be where you're at right now. Your key is to accept, acknowledge, and accept that you benefited from those aspects. And this is how you're going to start building your brand, rebranding yourself. I thought about it the other day. Actually, I thought about it last night. I admire, because you can learn from anything. I admire the chick that'll be on her IG or on her Facebook page or Snapchat, whatever it is, and she'll have all the pictures of her and her boo thing on there. And then when they break up, she erased all of it. And all you see is pictures of her. Because it initiates like, oh, she's single again. They ain't together no more. She erased all the pictures. Now somebody will sit there and be like, she's avoiding things and she's going through neglect and she's going through these issues. You're able to identify them in somebody else, but you ain't able to identify them in yourself. We don't get to that, but I'm going to go back to that. What I learned, that's not your job. That's not your job. That's another thing we don't get into. It's gonna be we don't get into this today. That's another thing that's not your job. Your job is not to stop trying to point out everybody else's. If you're not the example or you're able to discipline and able to teach in that aspect. This becomes a major issue for a lot of people where we want to say, oh, I can do this because that's that I want to fix everybody narrative. If I fix everybody else, I can avoid my own shit. If I fix everybody else, I can fix my own shit. I know I used to do it. Nothing I'm going to tell you is something I did not do. But I put myself into that space where I was like, oh, she's wiping the brand clean. Oh, she's wiping the brand clean. She's wiping it clean. She's wiping the slate. She's about to rebrand herself. Regardless of how she rebrands herself, she's rebranding herself. She's about to readjust her platform. She's about to even if it's a bunch of posts that have no depth behind them, she's rebranding herself. Now, the other half of that lesson is because a lot of us have done it. I ain't never really had to do it. But I've done it to a certain, I've even done it. I had to go look back at some of my memories from like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I realized I did a lot of things that I don't even remember that I did. I did a lot of things and made some posts that I didn't even realize that I did, because I was looking for it, because we get stuck in that imagery. We get stuck in that imagery with ourselves. So it'd be like, I didn't do it that way, so I didn't do it. Yeah, you did. It's the energy that you put into it. It's the energy that you put into that post that sets the tone of how it represents you. It's the energy that you put into whatever you're doing that sets the tone for you. It's that aspect for you. As you start understanding that you are a brand, that you are a corporation, and now you start owning that ownership mentality, you start to look at how you represented yourself before. Be gentle with yourself. You start realizing, oh, that's how I represented myself before. This is what came up from before. I can't keep using that same thought process. I had a train of thought for myself where a lot of us get stuck in this avoidant that avoidant rift. And I put myself into a mindset where I was like, you know what? As long as I'm always able to react, I can shut everything down. No one's going to be able to tell me I ain't real. No one's going to be able to tell me that I ain't this and that, because I'm always got something. I always got shots ready. Always. But after a while, when I actually started my healing process, started going into my healing, really getting into my deep work, I noticed that my frequency was changing. Your vibration changes. As you go from shame, if you're in a space where you feel shame, doubt, lack, despair, disheartened, constriction, repeats, all of them lower frequency aspects, check your space. Because once you start feeling at peace, once you tap into true peace, true content, true joy, true love, true abundance, true high aspects of yourself, you're going to notice that the same conversations, they never change. And I talked about this in the podcast. The conversations never change. You're going to notice when you go into a space, you have conversations with people, and you're like, we really didn't talk about nothing about 45 minutes. Has it always been that way? Yes. Tell yourself yes. Your ego is going to try to look up like, no, it was different. Tell yourself yes. I promise you, tell yourself yes. I told myself yes. Tell yourself yes. And you'll be like, damn, what's the difference? What's the difference? What's the difference? What's the difference? Oh, I'm dealing with my chemical process. I'm dealing with my chemistry. I'm dealing with my chemical bonds. I used to bond based on reaction. I used to bond based in reaction. I used to bond based on drama. I used to feed off of that drama. I used to feed off of the premature growth aspect. Every time something didn't go a certain way, based on the narrative that I set for myself, based on the identity that I set for myself, then I can react and be like, nah. See, that's why ain't nobody no good. That's why ain't nobody this. And I told myself this shit a lot of fucking times, because I wasn't taking ownership. I wasn't taking that accountability. I wasn't taking that responsibility for myself. Once I really started tapping into that, really truly started tapping into that, the way to tap into that is to really accept the change. Really accept the flow. Your identity is based in constriction. The identity you're trying to maintain is based in constriction. Usually always is. Every identity that you're trying to maintain is based in constriction. Because you're going to keep trying to rebrand yourself to fit that identity every couple months. But your authenticity, yourself, the ownership, the LLC mentality, that's you. Getting yourself together, that's you. The best thing about you, when you start healing, because one thing that I notice people are afraid of when they start their healing process, when they start owning up to when they start owning up to their shit, taking accountability, taking responsibility for themselves, is that you changed or you sold out. You used to be real. Keep going, because they cannot buy in to what you're in. They cannot invest into where you're going. They can't invest into it. It's $2,500. I said in myself when I set up this one mantra for myself, I was like, in order to sit at the table with me, it costs $2,500. It costs $2,500 to sit at the table with me. It costs $5,000 to invest at the table with me. And I set that as my mantra in my mind. That means every conversation that I started to have, if they did not have $2,500 worth of energy in healing aspects in making me uncomfortable, then I can't invest in it. I started looking at how I was giving out advice to people. What was I emulating? What was I saying? How was I speaking? I started looking at these things with myself. Really started tapping into these things. And this is one of those processes, as you peeling those layers back, you start really looking at those things. Because as I've been saying all week, as you start removing these external anchors that give you your definition, you start maintaining your own space. Your space is your initial opportunity. Where you are at right now is your initial opportunities. Your opportunities based in your space, based on how your space is put together, that's how you're going to set the tone for your standards. You cannot have the highest opportunities without setting your highest standards. For you, what is your standard? You know exactly what happens when you do certain things when you mixing up certain things. You know exactly how much time you lose in every time you mix up with the same aspects. Hell, for some of you, the same thing ain't even feeling the same no more. The thrill is gone. But you still go in there because there's some remnants of maybe. There's a remnant of maybe. At least I'm not like this. At least I'm not like them. You ain't supposed to be. When you focused on at least I'm not like that, then you can't learn from it. When you stuck on that competition, you can't learn from it. Spin it all the way back around to what I said the first time. Once you understand that you are the LLC, you are the entity, you are the brand, you are the platform, you're going to check the way that you represent yourself. You're going to look at how other things represent you. You're going to start understanding, and you're going to start going deep within inside of yourself for that moment of reflection. Everything that you do from this point, as I always say, everything that you do from this point, every time we have these conversations, this is the end of what you used to think. This is the end of the what and when. This is the beginning of the how and why. This is the end of the what and when and the beginning of the how and why. What and when keeps you stuck in your comfort zone. How and why takes you outside of your comfort zone. The how and the why. That means, how did I get to this point? And why? And the why is, why did I allow myself? Because I didn't know. I didn't know yet. I didn't know what I know now. But now that I know what I know, how am I going to apply it? How am I going to apply it? And then it's going to take me forward. Be gentle with yourself. Be that brilliance to yourself. I just want you to be the best. This week's episode on the G.O.D podcast, we got very deep into those three aspects: imbalanced behavior, premature growth, and parasitic function. Tune in to tap out to that. Tomorrow, I'll see y'all tomorrow when we do the God Hour show. And if you are interested in, let's build that dialogue, get that consultation going, inbox or hit me at GodaCoAlchemistLLC.com. Reading, shadow work consultation. It could be a life coaching. I offer the life coaching aspects. The psycho thing, it's all there. I'm just the vessel here to teach you the tools. I'm just the vessel here to give you to teach you how to use these tools. But I can give you the plate, I can give you the fork, I can give you the knife, I can give you everything that you need. But it's up to you to use it. What are you gonna do from this point? What are you about to do from this point? How are you gonna how are you gonna do it? A lot of times we like to try to get ourselves together, but we trying to we need to allow ourselves to come apart. I want you to be the best. I want you to be the best. You know what? You know what? Let's do it. You know what? We're gonna do it. I'm gonna do a reading real quick. Ooh. First card to pop off. Soon as we did it, is the Tower card. The Tower card represents and illustrates falling apart. The Tower card represents falling apart. The Tower card represents allowing things to fall away. It's going to seem like, oh my God, everything's falling apart and it hurts. It's supposed to. Do you want to keep feeling comfortable? Do you want to keep doing what you keep doing? Cycling back through the same things? No. I don't want to do that. I never, once I understood that, I was like, I can either keep repeating these same things, I can keep doing the same things, or I can invest in my changes. But how do I invest? The question for me was like, how do I invest into the changes? I had to give myself that masterclass. That Tower aspect, it represents things falling apart for a reason. There is no more of this. A lot of times we hold ourselves, what we try to hold together with ourselves a lot of times is our identity. The identity that we maintained. A lot of times for ourselves, we try to maintain that old identity with ourselves. You know, I used to be this and I used to be fly back in 98. You ain't fly no more. Accept that you ain't fly no more. It's okay. You can't maintain that old. You can't maintain the old while trying to tap into this newness. The next card represents the Three of Wands. That illustrates that conflict. There's three bodies in this card. The one in the center is you. The other two are your shadow and your ego. Your ego is telling you one thing. Your shadow is trying to tell you another thing. But which one are you listening to? As everything starts to fall apart, what version of yourself are you listening to? Is it time to is it time to have that conversation with the inner child? Is it time to have that conversation with the inner adolescent? Is it really time to have that conversation? Is it really time to sit your ego down and be like, you know what? I appreciate what you've done, but I need you to go sit to the side real quick. I need to go have a conversation with little mama. I gotta have a little conversation with little bro inside. I gotta have a conversation with the shadow real quick. What do you need to do? This leads into the aspects of your elements. This leads into the aspects of those elements. The things that used to drive you, the things that used to fill your cup, the things that used to give you that energy and that fire, the things that used to keep you grounded. You're at a point right now where you're feeling like, I can't find any grounding. You're starting to notice that with that tower falling off, that tower energy, as everything's falling away, you're noticing that you were tethered to some things. You weren't grounded, you were tethered. A lot of us moving our identities, we're tethered to that idea. We're tethered to the idea of avoiding our neglect, avoiding our abandonment issues, avoiding our anxieties, avoiding these aspects. The Empress tells us it's time to gather these things and sit them on that table so I can really start dealing with them. Next card off top, Ten of Wands. The best thing about it, once you start understanding you got to sit at that table with yourself, the Ten of Wands represents the end of that clash. It's easy. The easiest way to be able to tell which person you need to have a conversation with is whichever one is usually the loudest. The best way that I do it whenever I do a meditation and I sit there with myself, you sit there with that meditation with yourself, is in the moment. The best way that I use it is in the moment. That means if I'm sitting in a moment where I'm feeling, let's say, for example, right now you're feeling really anxious, you're feeling really tired, you're feeling really anxious. Ask yourself, why do you feel tired? Really ask yourself, why are you feeling anxious? Allow yourself to sit with the question, not to try to get the answer. I know why I'm tired, because your ego, this is how you're gonna know if you need to bypass your ego. Your ego gonna come in and be like, oh, because you had to go to work, or oh, because of this, and this. Thank you. That's not the, but I need to know why. Not the what, but the why. The what is the external, the why and the how is the internal. How do I allow myself to keep getting tired? A lot of us, it comes from the stems of our inner child. That voice, that main voice that's based on reaction, that's based on highly emotional, based on that volatile, based on attention, based on the abandonment issues, is usually the inner child. The inner child is the main voice that usually speaks the loudest. It's usually muffled out by everything that we try to build around it, but it's usually our inner child. It's usually that inner child that's inside of yourself. It's the one that every time that you get to a moment and you start to feel good, then all of a sudden, since he or she's not disciplined, then they're gonna run amok. As soon as they don't start getting certain things, the inner child brings up the illustrations of our bad choices. The inner child brings up the aspects of our bad decisions, the decisions that we made that weren't that good. Our ego tries to protect us. This is the three voices. The ego will try to protect you and be like, you had to do that because you had to survive. So you know you're talking to your ego whenever it's talking about survival. You know you're talking to your inner child because your inner child is always going to bring up that illustration. Look, mommy. Look, daddy. Look at this picture. Look at this picture when we went over here this one time. Look at this picture when we went over here this one time. That's how you know you're talking to the inner child. And that shadow is a destructive force. For some, it is a very destructive force. It is telling you to destroy. It's the emotional aspects that you blanketed with yourself. It is telling you to destroy. It's the one telling you to destroy things. It's the one telling you to get back at them. It's the one telling you to clap back at people. It's the one telling you to voice your opinion, get loud. That's the shadow. The shadow is going to be every aspect. The shadow is every emotional channel that you have not dealt with. The inner child is going to show you every picture of everything that you've done in that space for attention, love, what you thought was love, what you thought was friendships, relationships. That's what the inner child is going to show you. And your ego is always going to try to protect you. You know why you had to do that. It's okay. We can just keep doing that and we'll be all right. That's the best way. That's one of the quickest ways for me to describe each one of those inner voices. And I'm going to pull one more card. I got told to pull one more card. The last card that I just pulled, last two cards I pulled, Page of Wands. The Page of Wands represents new opportunity. So now that you come into this clash, this conflict with yourself in that energy, in that space, and you're like, you know what? I need to have that conversation with myself. Now it's time for the opportunity for you to have that conversation. This is going to be the opportunity to have that conversation with yourself. Identifying the inner child, identifying the shadow, and identifying the ego. Because ultimately, those are the fragments of your identity. But as I said before, I want you to be the best. Just a nice little quick talk. I like having these talks with you guys. You are the company. You are the business. You are the best. But you got to adjust yourself. It's time to do some adjusting. It's time to do some cleaning up. It's spring for a reason. It's time to do some cleaning up. Do you really want to do this same thing in the next year? Do you want to be doing the same thing the next couple of months? If so, so be it. But if you want to be the best, you want to tap into it, hit me in the inbox. Hit me in my inbox, GodaCodeAlchemistLLC.com. Let's schedule this. Let's have that dialogue. Let's set that consultation up so we can get you to the best you. The only thing stopping you and holding you back is you. Let go. Let go. I love you. You love us. Ashe. Two people can vibe very well together. You know, have the same thoughts, same ideas, etc., etc., etc. But the chemistry to bring those ideas and thoughts to life within these two individuals or three individuals, however many individuals, is nowhere near compatible. One may have urges that they have not learned to discipline, while the other is not in the position with their own disciplines to teach or guide the other.